Hello and welcome to another update video for Factor Default Build Trade Repeat, this time for version 0.0.6.0, Global Perception. I'm going to take you through all the patch notes covering all the major changes to the world map, the new global perception system, the new policy system, the new countries, the new items added to the game, the Ultima Mundi Tier 1 products, the new building types, as well as many changes this update brings. If you would like to try the game out for yourself, you can play for free at searchit.itch.io/fd. Version 0.0.6.0 was going to be a simple update, some new features and items, and some optimization. I got a little carried away when I had the idea to remove the weird click on a country and a map pops up thing. I wanted the player to be able to control the whole planet without much fuss, and I think I have managed that. In short, I cut the 2D elements of the game in favor of a full 3D experience. With that out of the way, let's get straight to the new features of this update. First up is Global Perception, which is a value out of 5 stars. The higher your global perception, the more influence you will generate per day. Your rating is based on 6 categories of various importance, and each category has a few metrics that are considered. At 10% is your financial strength, which looks at your company value, your outstanding debt, your private ownership percentage, and your cash on hand. 15% is based on your industrial might. It looks at how many countries you've expanded to, how many tiles you own, how many buildings you own, how many trade routes you have in operation, the value of the goods you generate every day, as well as the number of researches you have completed. 15% is based on your corporate responsibility. It looks at the number of employees you have, the amount of wages you pay, the amount of benefits you provide, as well as the size of your management team. 20% is your environmental stewardship, or your environmental impact. This is the amount of pollution or impact you have on your environment. This is covered by Environmental Impact Units, or EIU. The more EIU you generate, the lower your environmental stewardship in your global perception. We will go over what you can do to bring down your EIU later in the video. 20% is your reputation. This looks at your number of completed contracts, the number of active contracts you are fulfilling, as well as the number of government bailouts you have accepted. More on government bailouts later. The final 20% is your legacy. This is one-to-one based on the tier level you are at in the Ultima Mundi project. Every 5th star your global perception is at has a different business rank shown over your stars on the top. From there, you can compare your global perception against that of your NPC company rivals. There is no in-game reason for this leaderboard yet. Currently, it is just fun to look at and compare. In addition to how well you are doing in the game, you can enact company policies that have direct effect on your global perception, and will either save or cost you money to run your business, whatever is most important to you to grow. Changing your company policy costs 1,000 influence. Depending on how risky you play the game, you might find yourself deep in the red. At negative $500 million, you'll be offered a $1 billion bailout from your country of origin. If you take it, it will cost you half of your current influence. You also have the option to reject it if you wish. In the middle, you also have the option to sell everything in every warehouse around the world to try to scrape some money back. Taking bailouts will negatively affect your reputation rating of your global perception. Alright, let's take a look at some of the countries that have been added to the game. Keeping with the trend of going beyond what I intended to do with this update, I went ahead and finished the world. Unfortunately, I did have to combine several countries in order to make some game mechanics work properly. There are quite a lot of small countries that would be represented by a single hex on the map, and I feel like players would have no reason to expand to these countries. So I took some liberties with borders and combined some countries to make the gameplay make a bit more sense. I will tack on the word union to all of these groups to indicate to the player that this is not a single country in real life. I'm just going to go into all of the additions and show them on the map. If you would like to take a look at their fertilities or more info, you can check the patch notes or take a look at the game yourself. Let's start with Africa. New to the map, we have Botswana, Cameroon, and the African Republic. We have the Congo Basin Union, the Horn Union, the Mascarene Union, and the Senegambia Union. We have South Sudan and Tunisia, the Virunga Union, and the Volta Union, as well as Zambia and Zimbabwe. In the Americas, we have the Caribbean Union. I will point out that there are several islands that truly belong to other countries, but for the sake of the game and for the sake of realistic trading partners, it makes sense to keep them all together. I will also point out that Bermuda would not normally be part of this group. It was going to be pretty lonesome all by itself up here. we have the Central American Union, the Coastal Guineas Union, Ecuador, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Then up north we have Greenland. I will point out that obviously Greenland is not its own country, but for the sake of the game, it will operate as one. Over to Eurasia, where I have added Afghanistan, the Alpine Union, the Balkan Union, the Baltic Union, the Caucasus Union, and Finland, as well as the Hellenic Union, the Himalayan Union, Iraq, Ireland, and Iceland. We have the Laccadive Union, the Levant Union, Malaysia, and the Mekong River Union, Myanmar, the North Sea Union, Norway, Oman, and the Pamir Union, the Gulf Union, the Philippines, Portugal, the Romanian Union, Taiwan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. In Oceania, we have the Coral Sea Union, as well as French Polynesia, the Micronesian Union, as well as New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the Polynesian Union. Lastly, we have Antarctica. I will point out that currently you can build here without penalty. In the future, it will cost significant influence to be able to build in Antarctica. I'll open up the improved library so that we can take a look at the new fertilities that needed to be added to those countries and unions. The new search bar should make finding things a lot easier. We'll start with the mined resources: amber and lapis lazuli. Next, to farmed resources: betel nut, cashews, cinnamon, cloves, cork oak, frankincense, kava, khat, kiwi fruit, nutmeg, pomegranates, poppy, raspberries, taro, tulips, vanilla, and yerba mate. Two new livestock include deer and yak. The new wharf building allows for fishing in any ocean access offshore tile. Anchovy, bluefin tuna, cod, crab, halibut, krill, lobster, mackerel, mussels, octopus, oysters, pearls, pollock, salmon, sardine, scallops, sea cucumber, seaweed, shrimp, skipjack tuna, snapper, squid, swordfish, and yellowfin tuna. Some items added to aid in the fishing: we have lead ingots needed to make lead bearings needed to make fishing nets, fishing bait, and fishing traps. Only 3 items needed to be added to accommodate the new Ultima Mundi Tier 1 products: fiber optic cable, valves, and the industrial equipment paver. With the new 3D map, it was obvious that some new tile types needed to be added. Of the new tiles, we have 4 main ones. Desert tiles work the same as regular land tiles, but they have a 50% production penalty for farms or non-sand mines. The desert tiles are the intended location for drills, which will operate at 50% production anywhere but a desert tile. Snow tiles work the same as land, except they will have a production penalty of 50% on crop farms. Snowy mountain tiles work the same as mountain tiles, except they have a production penalty of 50% on mines. Offshore tiles are where you can build wharfs or offshore drills. These tiles are where the countries with a lot of islands can really thrive. A new category in the research menu was added. This simply enables various fishing methods, allowing you to catch a wider variety of fish. Next, we'll move on to some changes that were made from the previous versions of the game. Firstly, you will notice significantly less options in the new game menu. Balancing the game as it is currently is a challenge. Adding 10 plus options at the start of the game throw all of that out of whack. For now, there will only be a few options when starting a new game. One thing that was added here is now you can choose which country you want to start in. This is in contrast with the previous version where you were forced to start in the United States. Another thing removed here is the options to alter the way your character looks. There will be no need for this in later versions of the game, as showing the character at all times in a game like this doesn't make much game sense. I also plan on taking the Uncle Ian dialogue to a cell phone type interface. I'm going to choose Australia for the sake of showing a variety of tiles. The starting dialogue is the same as before, so we will skip that. Okay, when you start a new game now, you are given 4 buildings that together turn a small profit for you. 3 level 3 timber farms and 1 level 1 wood pulp agriprocessor. Let's get into some of the new buildings that were added, and we can talk about them a bit. Before, the only production buildings were the farm, mine, refinery, and factory. That has been split up quite a bit. Previously, livestock farms output things like feathers, eggs, meat, hide, etc. Now, they only output the animals themselves, and anything that the animal would generate passively: eggs, wool, milk, manure, etc. In order to get meat, hide, or fat, you must now process the animals at a meatworks. It should be noted that now all livestock require feed, not just the chickens and pigs. Wharf is where you can farm fish. Gasworks is where you can generate gases. Desert drill for generating crude oil or natural gas. Offshore drill, which does the same, crude oil and natural gas. The refinery for basic items like ingots. The oil refinery for oil products like diesel fuel. Industrial kiln for heating up non-metals like glass. Agriprocessor for processing crops and hide, also things like flour, cheese, and leather. Foundry for shaping metals into wire, plates, sheets, rods, and frames. Chemical plants for chemicals and plastics, think ammonia, ethylene, or propylene. Paper mill for paper products like cardboard. Packaging plants for foods and drinks, alcohol cases, bottled water, and packaging meats. Machine shop for complex metal shaping like gears, motors, and pumps. Factory for assembly line type manufacturing, electric vehicles, toys, and televisions. Electronics fab for intricate or hazardous electronics manufacturing, circuit boards, batteries, and speakers. Semiconductor plant, ultra-precise, tiny, and in large volumes of manufacturing, semiconductors and microcontrollers. Nuclear plant, this is a factory for handling anything radioactive, uranium dioxide powder, and uranium fuel assemblies. Next are some buildings that will help you reduce your environmental impact. This is to say, you will offset your EIU production so that your global perception improves. Protected forest, private conservancy, wildlife refuge, carbon sink, seed bank, artificial coral reef, ocean cleanup rig, and direct air capture. Some other changes that are less obvious. In purple we can see how much EIU the building is producing, and you will see that the building has an added expense. All buildings have maintenance now. It seemed odd not to have it, and that is the only expense of the EIU buildings. AI was removed from the game. In previous versions, some AI was used to generate item descriptions and a pinch of dialogue. That has all been removed, and the game is now AI-free. The game speed has been adjusted. Before, the range was 1 day per 4 seconds to 4 cycles per 1 second, and now it is tightened to 1 cycle per 2 seconds to 3 cycles per 1 second. This was because I needed to move from 15 ticks per day to 20. So the max was 4 days per second, and now it is 3. There may be times you want to speed through the game, but just be careful. A missed contract can be catastrophic. The storage panel has been overhauled. It was done in an inefficient way before and is much better now. Market was overhauled again. Previously, I had simplified the markets to be only consisting of 25 markets for the sake of movements being simpler. This was the precursor to making unions for some of the smaller countries, but to further pare down the markets when I am already compressing some areas of the world seemed unnecessary. So instead of every item in every market moving, there are a series of steps that will happen whenever the price of an item needs to be determined. Every day, 100 items flux up or down by a low percentage. This change only happens to the base price of each item. If I need to find the price of something, I use my market price function, which takes the base price and multiplies it by the fertility, if there is any. Then, any player intervention offsets that only get created when a player trades that specific item in that specific market. Then a market flux offset, which is determined by the economic strength of the country or union. This way, instead of keeping track of every price of everything, 550 items times 105 markets, I just keep track of that base price and apply any changes on the fly. all tiles on the coast now count as shore tiles. So instead of only having 1 to 5 tiles that you can build shore buildings, now you can build anywhere that is adjacent to the offshore tiles. This also means that trade vehicles will actually target the tiles the trade building is on instead of the center of the country. I removed the limit of power plants. You can build whatever power plant you want in whatever country. The value of the power produced has diminishing returns and completely vanishes after 100,000 megawatt hours. I also removed the limit on research labs. The trade-offs of building a research lab versus the production building are high enough. The player can decide if they want to spend the money on them. Trade buildings are now indestructible. Honestly, this was mostly due to my rewrite of the export manager. The more I thought of it, however, governments wouldn't really appreciate a company building and destroying airports willy-nilly. Previously, you could adjust the number of employees to adjust the efficiency of a building. Now you can change the wages and benefits as well. The math will work out to be the same, but adjusting wages and benefits will have a better effect on your global perception. Like before, buying and selling on the market will make small adjustments to the market price. Now each country has their own volume sensitivity for how much can be traded without disrupting the market. Another change is this money trend is now an average of the previous 14 days. While it may be more helpful to see every day's money trend, it can be a bit jarring when a delivery is started or completed. With a 14-day average, hopefully the player can get a better idea of how they are doing instead of numbers jumping up and down by thousands or even millions of dollars in a single day. You have never been able to build train stations on islands, but with the warehouses also being an export building for trucks, I had to make some adjustments. Simply, a warehouse that is not connected to the rest of the world's landmass will not be able to send or receive trades. It will only function as an increase in storage capacity. I also removed public shares from the game. Its implementation was pretty weak, so I think the game is much better without it. If I can think of a better way to incorporate it, I'll add it back in and probably work on the stock trading. We'll have to see. Okay, let's move to some more minor changes. Directional light follows the camera now. Resource generation pop-up is more helpful. Removed unnecessary filters from the market and manager screens. Mercury ore was replaced with cinnabar. Pneumatic liquid crystals are now no longer generated from nothing, but instead have 4 ingredients: benzene, p-xylene, ammonia, and hydrochloric acid. They are made in the chemical plant. I added error messages to the build menu. Before, it would just play an error sound without telling the player what was wrong. Hopefully now it will be more clear. Now that the maps are no longer 2D, there is a lot more of a chance to accidentally click on hexes that aren't in your intended country. To lock the currently hovered country as the only country you want to build in, simply right-click. Right-click again to unlock. As far as bug fixes, most bugs were squashed when I remade most systems, so there are a new batch of bugs ready to be discovered. That is mostly it for version 0.0.6.0, so let's have a quick chat about 0.0.7.0. In an effort to keep the gap between updates small, I'm going to focus only on 2 things for the next version. I'm going to add Ultima Mundi Tier 2 items. There are 48. They all need icons and recipes. A tutorial of some sort. There might be a few little additions or changes. We will see. Alright, so that does it for this update video showcasing the version 0.0.6.0 update for factory default build, trade, repeat. Remember, if you want to play the game yourself, you can do that for free at searchat.itch.io/fd. Take care.